The essence of good design is value for input, or inputs and outputs. Everything has an input of energy, of time, of money, of natural resources. And it goes through a protocol. The time, the money, the natural resources are focused, organized, combined, synergized in such a way that then creates an output, right? So you have an input of time, money, and natural resources. It goes through a protocol, and then you have an output. And the significant output for a human being is sustainable well-being, right? Cocaine, heroin, etc., can give you a rapid ascent, but it's not sustainable, right? Blame and righteousness can give you a little, click of aliveness, but it doesn't lead to very high yields over time. And so what a good microculture is doing is two things. It's helping its people to develop more skill, more efficiency at enacting the protocols that lead to more sustainable well-being, and simultaneously iterating those protocols to yield better results, right? So let's take a little, let's look at time, for example, right? If we look at the status quo, there's high levels of loneliness, high levels of boredom, high levels of meaninglessness, high levels of ambivalence. I don't really want to do this job, but it's something that I have to do. And so those are the outputs, right? Right? Everyone has 24 hours in the day, right? But the average output of sustainable well-being is relatively low in much of our culture. So, the sleep output, is fairly standard. If we say roughly 8 hours of sleep, right? It's relatively standard in many places. The quality of that sleep is often quite low, which is a third of our life, right? So that's not very good. And then there's often a lot of work. Sometimes it's just, work and sleep. So, let's look at the time protocol for Medicina. So one of the more important things on a daily basis is 3 hours of community fun and community building, right? So we've got creativity, we've got yoga, we've got learning about new protocols around the world. We have, doing something that makes our lives more beautiful, having a ritual, creating a ritual, but community fun and iterating that block of time. Now, there's also chores, right? So 3 hours of chores. Now, chores are important for a couple of reasons. One, appreciation and understanding, right? When everything is done for us all the time, it doesn't have meaning. And I've experienced this staying at 5-star resorts around the world. It becomes a blur when there's no connection between effort and outcome. The other thing that chores do is they bring people together, right? And there's an appreciation of, that someone did something. When you see someone working hard for us, it creates a sense of significance in daily living. Now, the other aspect of chores, though, is it reduces costs. And when you reduce cost, cash cost, you reduce your dependency on the outer ecology, which is basically free market capitalism, right? So in order to have freedom, you either need to produce a lot of things that other people like, which are often not the things that we want to do, right? Or you need to lower the dependence on that outer ecology so that you can do more of what you want, right, in the way that you want. And so chores provide that framework to dramatically lower costs. Now, another 3 hours a day for those that are not financially independent at the time of joining the community are income earning hours. Now, the community provides a framework where that can be done with virtual work, for example, graphic design, by having a good internet system and, a framework of spaces that an individual can reserve and set up for the purpose of doing remote work. You've got virtual assistant and virtual assistant training. You've got graphical work, coding, online therapies, videography, a whole host of online skills that can be done from the community so that you walk to work. And, if you imagine, let's say, $25 an hour, focusing on building quality, et cetera, is kind of a reasonable goal that anyone can aspire to and attain. Certainly, why not more? But let's just say $25 an hour. That's $75 a day, right, in income. And if you take $75, that's $750 plus another $750 for 20 days of work, and you can certainly do 30, days of work if one would like. But somewhere in that range, it's providing the ability to meet a threshold income, which may be $500 of pocket money, which is much less relevant when most of what you want to do is on site, and $1,000 for utilities and food and infrastructure. Something along those lines is very sustainable in a community like Medicina. And of course, if you're in a category that can, you've developed your skill to a point where you can make, $100, $200, $300 an hour in some, virtual sense, then you have a tremendous amount of ability to, not only contribute to utilities and wonderful food, not only save up money, but also, and invest for the future, but, also bring more resources to the community in a way that you might enjoy, right? If you want a squash court or a bowling alley or whatever, and you're easily making a lot more money, you have the ability to to structure and invest and do something along those lines that enriches your life, as well as to perhaps do more travel. And the other thing, the things that bring the most meaning and significance are the ways that we reduce our own and other people's pain, right? And the place to start is, of course, reducing our own pain, and then reducing the pain of fellow community members. But when we experience what comes alive in the process, the next excitement is to take that to scale, to affect other people's lives, knowing what it's done to us, right? And so in that area, the community is founded on an ethos of service, right? Which begins with ourself, but then living in the question, how can we create the most amount of sustainable well-being for the most amount of people? And that also is 3 hours a day, right? To live in that question and follow our strengths and our talents and develop, refine our skills to a point where we can have more impact. So this is an incredibly effective space, and still, because of no commute, because of the incredibly low cash cost of living and the rich quality of life, there's still 4 hours, right, of me time, right? So every day, extra time to just, do whatever we want. So that's the input. We all have the same 24 hours. This is the protocol. And the amount of sustainable well-being is the benchmark, right? Which we share, publish, iterate, and maintain and check in. Like it's about evolving the protocol and getting better at these results. So that's the time input and output. But there's also a money input and output, right? Which we can look at over here. And there's 2 basic inputs in this category. We have the 175 for life input, and we don't even necessarily have to draw it since the background isn't that great. But maybe we'll just do it over here. We have the 175,000 for life input. And that's where an individual makes a loan, a no-interest loan to the Happiness Data, 10x Living, the nonprofit, and is able, right, to put 100,000 towards infrastructure, and the remainder is deducted indefinitely. So that last 75,000 provides food and shelter infrastructure for in a way that kind of reduces, right? So for life. So basically that last 75 is deducted at a rate of 1,700 per month until it's used up. But if you're staying beyond that, right, then the fact that you've provided capital up front for the investment in infrastructure is such that the community makes a commitment to provide that basic infrastructure for you for a lifetime, as long as you want to live there. Or you can join with 100,000 and plus 1,700 a month, right, for food and infrastructure. Now, if we look, that's the money then that is coming into the community in addition to the donations to the nonprofit and things that I've contributed and will continue to varying degrees to contribute. If we look then at how this money goes through its protocol and what's the output, right. 41% goes to infrastructure, immediate infrastructure expansion. And I'm front-loading a little bit of that in terms of, with the nonprofit, and it makes more sense to front-load more of the money that will be invested into infrastructure initially. But this is a ratio that will emerge, after 10 or more people are resident at the community. So 41% of that money goes to infrastructure. 7% of that money is donated to the nonprofit and is available to be in that living question: how can we contribute the most amount of sustainable well-being to the most number of people with the least amount of money, right? And so that is a living question, and that will be spent in local Costa Rican community projects, things that might help the neighbors. Right now, I'm helping the neighborhood to retrofit a bridge that currently floods every year, and so that would be an example of a gift. Last year I regraded a major section of road that's helped a number of farmers. So that's in the gift category. 3% of the money will be invested in cryptocurrencies, specifically Ethereum and Bitcoin, because of the large asymmetrical dynamic there, meaning Ethereum, I believe, has a 35,000% return on investment as it stands today, even with the crash, making it the most profitable investment of all time. And it's pioneering a new set of technology, a new level of accountability. It's an important technology to support in what it may bring with blockchain and smart contracts, et cetera. It also, is good to have exposure to something that has such a high potential for profit. Now, the next thing we have are growth stocks, or let's actually do conservative things. Berkshire Hathaway has, look at 8%, right? Berkshire Hathaway, for the last 50 years, has done a better job of stewarding people's money than almost any other long-term investment fund. And so, it's a very, very stable, safe place to put money that's run with reasonable ethics, I would say. It's not great, but it's also pretty stable returns on investment. Now, we also have 20% in growth stocks. And these are, by the way, invested in the nonprofit. So I've set up trading accounts within the nonprofits. So because going out and asking people for money is no fun. It's fun to be able to take dividend investment yields, et cetera. It's fun to be able to have money make more money in ways that are ethical, and not to be in this constant deficit of scarcity. And so when I formed a nonprofit, my plan has always been that I'm going to donate as much money as I can to the nonprofit, and then I'm going to invest, and I am invested with that money so that I don't have to go out and ask other people for money. Please give money to this and this. That's not really fun. And so this is part of the investment protocol, so that there should be more money, right, every year coming out of the nonprofits to be available to live in that question, how to create more and more sustainable well-being. So the growth stocks, Tesla is one of my favorite. It's incredibly profitable growth stock, but it's also consistent with creating the safest cars in the world, some of the cleanest cars, some of the most efficient cars in the world. So saving people's lives, conserving energy, durability, right? When you have things that are engineered to last 1 million miles, that's durable, right? So you're not throwing things away, after 100,000 miles or 200,000 miles. You're building to last a long time. So Tesla, there's also, new technology that's kind of emerging in various index funds. Kathy Woods is very good at pioneering open source. And so that's kind of in that growth category. Now, 11% of the nonprofits' money is kept in cash for emergencies, but also for, huge, if that builds up beyond a point that's needed for most emergencies and there's a huge market downturn, that's, the days when markets crash, those are usually the times to buy. And so it's good to have cash on hand. It's a very big part of freedom and quality of life for all concerned, that anyone can leave the community at any given point, right? So the goal is to create the community to be so enjoyable that anyone looking at how they could spend their time, their money, and consider the natural resources would pick this over any other place in the world, right? And there's a maximum size, the absolute maximum number of people that can live in this land according to the protocol outlined by sociologist Charles Dunbar is 150 people, right? And so the more successful the community is, the more people want to come, right? And so that, but there's a limit, and so I want people to be able to leave at any point, and I want to work together to make it more and more attractive so that more and more people, it's if we're successful, there should be 1,000-person waiting list for something like this that sparks the impetus for other communities. We're not going to expand beyond the 150 people, but help other communities to expand. But the cash is also there so that anyone can leave and receive the $100,000 no interest loan back, minus the 7% gift, right? So there's a gift tax, meaning a donation to the nonprofit that is part of joining. But you should be able to get your $93,000 and leave at any point, next year, the year after, 5 years, 10 years. And so part of that cash is also reserved so that, people can leave without having to wait for someone else to want to sign up. There's also 10% of the money is for small business loans by credible people in the community, right? So this is, in a sense, a community bank, right? So if 10 people are joining our community at, let's say, the $100,000 threshold, well, then there would be $100,000 available to be loaned to community members to start small businesses that can be run within the community framework, right? So someone might get a $3,000 loan to take a series of online courses that train them to be competent working online, after which they can make a steady income working within one of the on-site offices, using using the internet to make money. That would be an example. And just like a bank, it would be voted on by a majority of community members would have to say, I trust this person based on their track record, et cetera, to do this. And the interest rate on that will be 10%. Now, the net goal, the kind of a conservative estimate that we want to come out of that is an 11% cash return. So we've got the 7% tax, which is the gift. The money earned within the nonprofit investment accounts are not taxed because it's a 501c3 nonprofit. So that is tax-free. And there's no tax on giving back a loan. So if someone deposits $100,000 and 5 years later they want to recall that loan upon leaving the community, well, they get the $93,000, minus the gift tax, right back. And there are also situations where if they've improved the value of their space within the community, they may get the full $100,000 back in the increased appreciation on the community itself, because that's another way that wealth comes into the community and we're going to cap that at 10% a year, but particularly in the early phase where you're building out infrastructure, right? It'll be much easier in year 5 to invite someone to come and replace and join the community for like $125,000 in buy-in, such that people who move out at that point can get their full $100,000 loan back that was used for infrastructure and investing during their stay. And this is also an important part of the mechanism of freedom rather than dependency, right? Because if a community takes more and more of a person's money every year that they live and has relatively low income earning opportunities, a person has fewer and fewer options to leave when they go. But when you don't have to pay rent and the community itself is appreciating in value, capped at 10% per year because this is not a real estate investing venture, then you've got $100,000 to leave if at any point something else excites you more, thus ensuring that the people who remain are the most excited people, right? That everyone is there, really wants to be there, because you get an immediate $100,000 check if you leave, right? You get the return of loan. But that 11% projected profit on interest on business loans, stock gains, crypto gains, and the increasing value of the community is, a source of abundance for the nonprofit and nonprofit activities over time that creates more and more independence, and also the ability to fund and provide seed capital that can then be returned for future communities of a similar type. So the last thing that I want to just focus on, right? So you want to turn money into more money and more benefit. You want to turn time into more and more value for people. But you also have the input-output of, you take a certain person with a certain number of skills. That's an input. A person comes to the community. And let's look at human capital, right? We want every person associated who works with, we want the people who work and are associated with the project to leave more valuable than they came. So you can think of the world gives us a person, right? That person goes through a protocol, and then the world gets back a more valuable person. That's one of the ultimate and most important measures of intelligence, of excellence. So let's look at the various ways that can happen. So one way, one of the businesses on the property is there will be 7 Airbnbs, each run by one community member, so that there's a really high VIP experience. And the only qualification to do that is getting 4.5 stars out of 5 average customer reviews. If you can provide that level of value to a client and you get off on that, then more power to you. You can be, one of the 7 that runs a single room. So that's income for 7 people right off the bat. And so if you can provide a very high quality experience where someone can come and have a full resort experience that they can't get anywhere else. You've got people coming as guests to Medicina that are having, a dining and community experience that is very rich in multivitamins, of the psyche that are just not available otherwise. And this is nourishing marriages, nourishing relationships, nourishing health, right? So, that is a tremendously valuable thing. You input someone who's maybe frazzled, who's traveling around, etc., and you give them a completely new experience of a way of life. They leave 5 days later, and they have a picture, they have an understanding of a different way of doing things. The world gets back a more knowledgeable and a more nourished human being. So that's one path through. So that's the path of Airbnb and equivalent apps. Now, another path is a student comes, pays $1,000 a month to cover their food, and after a month, again, experiences a whole new way of being, learns a variety of skills, and then leaves, or stays for another number of months and then leaves, with knowledge that is very difficult to have. In fact, is impossible to have in exactly that way anywhere else. Knowledge of permaculture, knowledge of sustainability, knowledge of cooking, knowledge of relating, knowledge of healing skills, right? And so that's the path of the intern, right? So it's cash neutral for the community, but the intern is bringing vitality, is bringing innocence, new eyes, right? Is bringing presence and effort, right? And is part of a network, and is then able to spread that, that knowledge out into the world. So that's the path of the intern. Which may also become, any of these paths can move towards membership, right? Living and doing this full time. So you have that path of Airbnb bringing money, in the path of the intern bringing knowledge, use, and experience. And also variety, right? Variety is an important part of value. And if we don't want to have to leave the community to drive somewhere for a new experience, then we have to create the kind of value where those new experiences come to us. Next, we have employees. Now, I'm a big fan of the Philippines. They're incredibly hospitable people, and $500 a month plus room and board is a very big step up. Like, we can give employees that have a very easy immigration path to the community a 1,000% higher quality of life, 1,000% higher educational opportunity, and double or triple a normal salary and saving capacity, such that, you know, this can be one of the best options in the world for a variety of employees that start out with low education skills and leave with a letter of recommendation and awareness of their strengths and abilities. While also increasing dramatically the sense of luxury, the sense of enjoyment of living on the land. And so that's the path of the employee. And finally, we have peripheral people in the information network. We have the community being benefited and invited. So we have community members in the general region who are invited a few times a year to come and see what we're doing and how we're doing it, so that that technology can be exported into local neighbors that are interested. And we have people that want to make a donation who can be involved with through our social media, etc., that in seeing the fruits of what they've contributed, how we help the most number of people in a sustainable way with that money, with those resources. So you have a tremendous return as a nonprofit in sustainable well-being. And finally, you have residents, right? You have residents, such as myself, who get to experience a 10x improvement in quality of life, while substantially, in most cases, and certainly in my case, decreasing costs. So a 10x improvement in value, an opportunity to learn and practice new skills every day that I can't learn and practice anywhere else, and to make sure that that knowledge that we're accumulating, the technology, cultural technology, is exported freely in things like YouTube, so that anyone in the world can copy that. And if at any point I or you or anyone else wants to leave the community, we're leaving in a more nourished state of being, in a healthier physical body, in a healthier mind, a healthier heart, having supported our planet, and we're bringing those skills out into the world to anyone that is touching us in their lives. And so the general goal is a 10x gift to the world. That any person that's coming in, whether it's through Airbnb, a lighter version, a mentor, an intern, an employee, or a resident, that what's going back is 10 times more valuable than what was given.